Hi, this is Stephen Mead, lifelong entrepreneur, business owner, and global speaker. Over the years, I've read hundreds of books and spent thousands of hours developing what I call the Bullseye Belief System. And I've used that system to develop my own companies, as well as help others learn to be specific, targeted, and focused to get exactly what they want in life. Again, I'm Stephen Mead, and this is the Bullseye Guy Podcast. Stephen Mead again, back with another Bullseye Guy Podcast. These things are coming fast and furious, so always a lot of fun. Had a great week. We were off in Malta, then we were off with Paul Oakenfeld and Emmanuel Kelly, and the good guys here at Groove Radio and Eagle set us up with some passes. That was always a lot of fun. If anybody is in LA, you should reach out. The Groove Radio stations are super cool. You know, we love the background here. Again, I always laugh. These are old albums from when DJ Eagle used to spin. Is that right? Used to spin albums. So love the album covers. Podcast today, we're going to do something a little bit fun, a little bit entrepreneurial, and a little bit educational. And I always like those. So not a lot of blockchain or fintech today. Today's podcast is called The Power of Three. And if you've ever studied numbers, the power of three has a lot of significance for people. It's actually my favorite number. And people used to ask me why. And I realized the first number I ever had in soccer when I started like sixth grade, my mom still has the jersey. It's about this big. Again, if you're watching this on YouTube, this little tiny jersey that I'm thinking my arm barely fits in there. It's hard to remember I used to be that small, but three's my favorite number. So we're going to talk about the power of three. And it's going to have a bunch of different things. And we're going to start out with some things that are funny, that are meant to be jokeful. There was a great song out many years ago by Shaggy. And if you haven't heard it, you should go look it up. It's called It Wasn't Me. And the whole thing was, it wasn't me for this and it wasn't me for that. But I used to think about how powerful are three words. And we used to joke, I'd come up with a bunch of them. Somebody asks you a question. You don't have to answer. You could say, that could be. Let me check. I'm not sure. There's many, many things that you can answer with three simple words. And we used to have a bunch of them, and I don't remember. They'll come back to me as we're talking. There's also three words in a movie that I really like. And it's a movie called The Kingsman. And if you haven't watched it again, you should watch. There's a great scene in there where I think it's Colin Firth. Again, I don't know these actors, but he's walking. They're about to get in a fight, and he walks out the door because these bullies are picking on him, and they think he's leaving the bar. And he walks to the edge of the bar, and he pushes the door closed in the lock. And he says three words. He says, manners maketh man. And with that, he slams the lock, and he turns around, and he beats up like 5 kids that were punking him. So what can you do with three words? And why is that important? Let's start with names. The name of a company. You may not realize this, but companies work hard. They struggle to come up with 3 syllables. And I'm looking here, actually, DJ Eagle. Is that right? Swedish Eagle. It's 4, but DJ Eagle's 3 syllables. If you think of some of the biggest companies in the world, it's not an accident. And we're in technology. Microsoft, Oracle, IBM, SAP. If you move into fashion brands, Gucci. I don't know, a lot of Tiffany's. That's probably 3. You can go down the list. Yahoo. I've got some written down. Apple, Google, Ford. 3 words, 3 syllables. Again, you're trying to come up with something that simplifies a message down. And naming a company is really tough. But if you can come up with 3 syllables or less, there's all kinds of psychology and statistics around 3 syllables. I've created a bunch of 3s along the way. One of my favorite is in raising money. A lot of people come to us all the time saying, oh, will you help me raise money? What should I do to raise money? The 3 words, I tell everybody, everything you need to know about raising money is 3 simple words. Dramatic pause. What is it? Capital follows Customers. Think about it for a minute. People are raising money, and I would ask them, they're like, oh, we're raising $1 million or $5 or $10 million. What do you need the money for? Historically, the primary thing you need money for, once a product's built, is to hire people to go sell something or to buy marketing to go sell something. The bottom line at the end of the day is you're trying to sell something. When you're raising money, invariably, almost the first question that's always asked, oh, we're raising X amount. It doesn't matter what that is. The investor will look at you and say, who's your customer? They don't even realize they're doing 3 words, but that's it. Who's your customer? The customer drives the success of the company. So when you're raising money, if you always remember, capital follows customers. How do you focus on customer acquisition? And we've spent a ton of podcasts on this. A ton of the blogs talk about the tornado technique and the bullseye and targeting who your customers are. The focus of raising money, the bottom line at the end is you're trying to get a customer. So lead with that. Capital follows customers. Another one of my 3 favorites. I told you they're going to come back to me. I think I may have talked about this before. As a startup, again, these are entrepreneurial tips. The question that I tell entrepreneurs, the number one question you should ask whenever you're going to a potential customer, whenever you're going to an advisor or an investor, somebody in a credible position, 3 words. No. Why won't this work? Oh, no, it's 4. Man, I was so close. All right, we'll skip that one. Why won't this work? Always ask that question. So throw that in there. It's not 3 words, but why won't this work? 3 words. Capital follows customers. We're going to do another one. It's something I created years ago. And again, I've talked about Ken Rakowski. There's a group here in LA called Metal Media Entertainment Technology. It was a group for many, many years. It was 60, 70, 80 guys. And it was men only. We took some flack, but you know, it's like, hey, you've got Chamber of Commerce. You've got fraternity, sorority. It's changed a little, but we talked a lot about how do you work together with people. And I created something called the 3 C's. And then I was the 3 R's. And then Ken would show it every Saturday with the 3 C's. And so we ended up with the 3 C's. But I'm going to talk about the 3 C's and the 3 R's, and you'll see the difference. Whenever you're working with somebody, again, as an entrepreneur, we deal a lot with people who are making introductions and helping us. And you always want to find a way to give back. Well, the 3 C's stand for credit, contacts, or compensation. And here's what I mean by that. Credit. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When I was running sales training, we learned that people I have to be correct. People will work extremely hard for recognition or credit. Credit means you can give somebody credit. You can praise somebody if they helped you. If you're at an event, if you're out, if you're at dinner, if you're on stage, calling out people by name, giving them credit, praising them in front of a group if they've helped you, if they've made an introduction, if they did something good, praise in front of a group, that credit gives that person, the credit is actually credibility. If somebody's helped you, you give them credit in a group, that gives them credibility within the circles for that person to go and be more successful. Credit's free. Doesn't cost you anything, but you have to learn how to do it. It's compliments, it's credit, it's credibility. And learning how to give somebody credit in a group helps that person within the group. So the first one is credit. Not credit like a credit card. Credit is in praise. The second C is easy. Contacts. If somebody helps you, if they make an introduction, how can you repay them? Learn what they need. Help them with the contact, right? Your contact is your currency. Again, I've got so many C's in here. Your currency sometimes are the people that you know. Who are your best people? Who are your best contacts? Who can you help them in terms of making an introduction to further their business, to help them be more successful, to help them move along in whatever their journey is that they're trying to do? Give them credit, give them contacts, or give them compensation. And compensation is a tricky one. But compensation means if somebody does an introduction for you, it turns into money. Find a way to pay them. You don't always have to run around. I have to be careful with the microphone here. Y'all don't always have to run around with your hand out. But if somebody makes a good introduction for you, compensate them. And by compensate, I don't always mean you have to write them a check. It could be something as simple as a Starbucks gift card. If it's a small deal, it could be something like a bigger gift card. But if it's a big deal, if it's millions of dollars, find a way to compensate them. Again, you have to be careful legally. You can't pay finder's fees and referral fees, but there's different ways you can figure out how to compensate somebody if a transaction went down where you made money. Don't just live in a vacuum where you're not giving back. It's easy. Gift cards are easy. $25 Starbucks gift cards, $500 from one of the department stores, $1,000 on an Amex card that they can spend wherever they want. Find ways to do it. So 3 C's: credits, contacts, or compensation. Always remember that. Now, where I started was the 3 R's. And again, Ken, I give him a lot of credit. He didn't steal them from me. I gave them to him. He puts them up at Metal all the time. But I really wanted them to be the 3 R's because the R's made more sense to me than the 3 C's. And I'll give you the 3 R's. You can take whichever one you like that you think works better. But the 3 R's are just like the 3 C's, but they're different. Meaning the first R stands for recognition. And you kind of heard me mention that earlier. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're driven as individuals by recognition. We're recognition motivated. And when we ran sales training, again, people would fall all over themselves for the recognition of a t-shirt on Saturday. We ran Saturday training, 600 people. And for the sales guys, the brand new people, we had what was called a fast start award. If they did 3 sales, 3 recruits in 30 days, again, power of threes. I'm not even realizing these things were going on. We had 3 sales, 3 recruits, first 30 days, power of 3. Didn't even realize that was there because it's just ingrained in me to do it. But they would get a fast start award. And that was a t-shirt in front of the group where we would recognize them for their accomplishments. Again, recognition, credit. So that first R is give people recognition when they've helped you or done something nice. The second R, just like contacts, is referrals. Give people referrals. Find out what somebody needs and how you can help them, and find a way to give referrals where you can move somebody's business along. And then the third R is revenue. Kind of the same thing. If somebody works on a deal, if somebody helps you, if somebody makes an introduction, and there's money on the table, how can you find ways to give out revenue? Have to do it legally. You can't pay finder's fees, but that's it. So contacts, credit, or compensation are the 3 C's. Recognition, referrals, revenue, they're kind of the same thing, but you have to learn how to think differently. Again, the podcasts that we've done, I think episode 2 or 3 went through the 10 steps of the bullseye. Step 2 in our 10 steps is what's in it for you, what's in it for me. Trying to figure out what's in it for the other person. That's how you can help them with referrals and revenue, things along that line. Another one of my 3 M's, and I don't know if we'll spend a lot more time on this, but when you're raising money, again, a lot of the things we do are very entrepreneurial. They're very early. There's a saying in the investment world, don't bet on the horse, bet on the jockey. And if you think about it, what the investors are saying is a smart executive, a smart manager will figure out the business. So you're looking at a team, and whenever you're raising money, you're always like, oh, here's my team, here's how great we are. We'll figure it out because we're smart. And that's what investors look at. That M is called management. And management's important. You want a good management team. You want to be able to execute on management. The next M to me, though, is just as important. It's the money. The money side says, how do you get more funding in? What's your capital? Right? How do you go out and raise money for everything you need to ultimately be successful on the fundraising side? And that fundraising aspect of money is where we really need to focus, and we don't know how. Management, money, but the third M to me is the most important, and that's market. What I mean by that is, let's use an example of, I don't bet on the horse, I bet on the jockey. Well, if that jockey's running a race in a little podunk, we're going to use a horse race. If they're running in a little podunk race in the middle of Paducah, Kentucky, at the end of the day, if they win the race, the payout's probably pretty small. They're in a small market, small opportunity. Even if they win, it's not a good outcome. If you have more competition, your chance of winning is even less. If you have a bigger market, if you have the Kentucky Derby, granted you have more competition, but the payouts are bigger. The money is bigger. The market is bigger. The market allows for more opportunity, more competition, more mistakes, and more favorable outcomes. And that's where I think people get lost. I've got a couple examples. I'm going to turn my sheet over here. And we talk about Amazon versus Moneta Pro, which is our fintech technology. Did a lot of research on Amazon. I was fascinated with it. I was fortunate to meet Jeff Bezos in 1997. There's a video out there I have on YouTube where I joke with Jeff. I got interviewed before Jeff Bezos. It was a show called TV.com. Ryan Seacrest, I think, was an actual intern at the time. A guy named Halsey Minor was running it. We had a company called Virtual Sellers, and we were doing e-commerce for everybody. And we actually owned, we being me, I owned a bunch of domains, booksellers.com, sports sellers, cigar sellers. I saw the world as verticals, and we saw the market as segmented. Jeff got interviewed, and right before they interviewed him, it was coming up next, Jeff Bezos with the bookstore, Amazon.com. Now, you may not remember, some people do, depending on the age and how far back you go. Amazon started out as just a book company selling books online. And the world didn't think it would be successful. No, people want the book right away. They want to touch it and feel it. Well, he proved them wrong, but what he did was he looked at books as a market and a segment and realized you could expand from that into other products. And here's what I mean by that right now. The market that Amazon is defined as is technically called retail commerce. Retail commerce as a whole is right at $20 trillion is the estimate. Think about that for a minute. $20 trillion encompasses retail commerce. That's a big market. Amazon in almost 20 years, I think the numbers are pretty close, is right at about $220 billion in sales. Top line sales, not revenue, not profit. Sales, total gross sales, $220 billion. The average transaction in Amazon's $87. It's primarily a business to consumer market, but it's a big market. $220 billion out of $20 trillion. He barely has 1% of his market. Now, I'm not a proponent of that. A lot of people come in going, oh, well, if I only get 1% of my market as a startup, look how big I am. That's not the point here. The point is Amazon's done really well, but they also have competition. Did Amazon win the race? Depends. Alibaba's come along with Jack Ma, and Alibaba's in retail commerce, competitive to Amazon, has done pretty well. eBay is still a force. eBay is in that market. If the total market were just books, Amazon wouldn't be as successful as it is. So I like market. I like management. I really like money. But to me, I'd rather bet on a jockey in a big market than a jockey and a horse in a small one. And I don't think enough effort's paid on market. We were just doing something the other day with a shout out to Adeo Ressi and the Founder Institute. I was mentoring a group last night. And again, this is about being specific. This is about the power of three. But A guy had a device he was talking about that was a wearable device. So it's basically some kind of eyeglasses that had a microscope built in, and I didn't understand it. And that's my goal as a mentor in these events, is to beat them up, because we beat them up through the Founder Institute in a controlled private environment. So when they go out in the real world, they're better. But he put up a market, and his market was, I'm going to guess at the numbers, let's say it was $12 billion. He put up this big market, but then he put up competition for wearables as things like Fitbit and Garmin. Because in his mind, he's like, oh, I've got this big market. Look how great we can be. And I hammered him on it, because my point was his market was actually medical devices that are wearable, not Fitbit. Fitbit tracks your steps in your sleep. It's not the medical segment. So when you talk about defining a market, the Power of Three says management, money, and market. But in your market, really learn how to drill down and be specific to what your addressable market is. Again, going back to Amazon, we joke. I looked at the total addressable market for me as everything that could be sold online. May sound funny. This is 1996. Yes, I am that old. In 96, internet didn't really exist to the level. There were no websites. There was no e-commerce. So to me, I saw the world as vertical channels, and Virtual Sellers basically was a processing platform that let anybody sell anything. Again, we got interviewed before Jeff on that particular TV.com because we could sell anything for anybody. He executed in a very defined market because he said, if I get good in this market, I can expand out from there. So the Power of Three is not only about coming up with three things, but how do you focus? How do you drill down on your market to figure out exactly what you need to be successful? So turning back over, I think we may be a little shorter on this one because I had a bunch of other areas of three, and I thought, what else could I come up with? But I don't want it to be a bunch of miscellaneous arbitrary. The important ones are 3 C's: contact, credit, or compensation. If you like the R's, it's referral, recognition, referrals, or revenue. Those are the 3 main ones. When you're focusing on raising money, capital follows customers. Focus on customers, focus on customers, focus on customers. Identify your market. You'll figure out how to be successful. Ending a little bit early, so wherever you guys are, go out, enjoy the day, enjoy the sun, enjoy the holidays. Stephen Mead with thebullseyeguy.com, coming to you from the Groove radio stations downtown in LA. Tune in again next week. More great stuff to come. Thank you.